Hey everyone, Carl Valeri with the Stuck Mike Avcast, and welcome to episode 189, AviNation with Jacob P. Jacob P is really inspiring youth in aviation with his new magazine. I'm here in Georgia, right near Savannah International Airport at the mighty 8th Air Force Museum. And our question this week is, why is it that the mighty 8th Air Force Museum is right here in Georgia at Savannah Airport? And here's a trick question. Which airport did the mighty 8th Air Force, the 8th Air Force, where was it formed? What airport? That's a trick question. So answer the question at the bottom of this video, and also you'll hear the answer to it in another video. So don't forget to subscribe here at the YouTube channel or on StuckMikeAvcast.com. So let's go listen to Jacob P. of AviNation.
The following aviation podcast is presented as entertainment, not flight instruction. Though some participants are certified flight instructors, their comments, opinions, and discussions of flying techniques are theirs alone. None of the co-hosts or guests on this podcast are acting as your flight instructor. Please consult your own CFI for guidance on your specific flight training, aeronautical knowledge, and aircraft operation. This is the Stuck Mike Avcast, an aviation podcast about learning to fly, living to fly, and loving to fly.
Episode 189, Attracting, Educating, and Empowering Youth in Aviation, AviNation Magazine with Jacob P. Coming up next in the Stuck Mike Avcast.
Now here are your co-hosts, Victoria Newville, Eric Crump, Larry Overstreet, Russ Rosleski, Tom Frick, Rick Felty, and Carl Valeri.
Well, folks, welcome to a special episode of the Stuck Mike Avcast. To create a more sustainable and diverse aviation community, we must inspire all to join this wonderful world of flying. Jacob P. is achieving this goal by reaching out to an underrepresented segment of our flying population, and that is our youth. Jacob is the publisher of AviNation Magazine. It's just a blast to read. It's so much fun. It's visually appealing, and it truly is inspiring our youth to literally reach for the skies.
Let's do the pre-flight.
But before we begin, a quick word from our sponsors. Our sponsor is AviationCareersPodcast.com with scholarships, career coaching, interview preparation. You can find out all those, plus all the courses at AviationCareersPodcast.com. If you want your pilot certificates paid for by someone else, check out the scholarships guide.
Now entering cruise flight.
Well, anyway, welcome to the podcast, Jacob. It's been awesome. I haven't talked to you, I think, since Sun and Fun.
Right. No, we did an interview up on the deck at Sun and Fun there, and it's been quite the journey since then. It's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess we should make a plug for Sun and Fun Radio, of course. If you want to hear that interview with Jacob, by the way, we actually stream those all year long at liveatc.net/SNF or liveatc.net/LAL, the Lakeland Airport. You can actually look for Sun and Fun Radio, and you can listen to Jacob and the interviews, all the other interviews out there all year long. We love to support our friends over there at Sun and Fun. Well, Jacob, we talked a little bit in the past, and for those folks that don't know you, you have had a long history and really have developed this incredible passion for aviation. So before we talk about this magazine that you started, just give a little background as to why you're so passionate about aviation and flying.
Well, growing up, I grew up in a publishing business. That's where I've learned what I know. My father used private aviation to do his job, and so I got to fly right seat a lot. I was his little shadow, and I got to fly right seat a lot. And he had all kinds of different planes and progressed up, and so I got some time in King Air C90s and different things, and I was always his shadow. So I'd always get to go to these overnight business meetings we'd fly to, and I got to hang out at the airport a lot with our corporate pilot. And so that's, I think, when it really started, I started getting the bug, with that kind of aviation. And of course, then I followed the path of every young person that looks to the sky. But I really didn't get involved into really getting serious into flying until I was a little bit older. But being around it a lot, and of course, where I came from, I came out of that company, having ran the whole aviation division, and so I've got to do a lot of networking and traveling around promoting business aviation and general aviation with my last tenure. And so that really lit the spark in being around aviation. So that's kind of the path.
So when you're out there talking to all these different people in aviation, I've noticed something is they're incredibly passionate about their hobby and also sharing their hobby, because there truly is, I feel, something magical about this. You get to travel all over the country, and I'm wondering, do you feel that magic still when you're out there?
Oh, absolutely. It's no different than any other passion, really. The thing is, the people that it draws to it are outstanding, and just the way people, like you said, share it. It's crazy. It is a passion. It's more than a passion. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's, I liken it to golf. There's people that are crazy about golf, and people ask me why I live on a golf course, even though I don't golf. And I said, well, because people love golf and they're passionate about it. I'm not, but the real reason is I'm 2 miles from an airport. And so it's not the golf, it's the fact there's an airport. I get to watch airplanes take off and land. There's nothing like sitting on my back porch and watching the tri-motor fly by. That's just a blast. Right. And I get to see those things every day. And again, it's all situational. What's good for you? And the people that play golf, whatever it is you love to do, you always want to share that with other people. And we in aviation are no different than those folks. But I think in golf, and this is a very good similarity here, is that an analogy is golf is having a problem bringing other people in that are in their youth and trying to get more people to go out and play golf. Being a member of a club, we were having this discussion. I said, we need to do that in aviation. We need to start bringing more youth into aviation. And boy, I've been out there a cheerleader for aviation and young folks for a long time. But one of the things I thought was missing is that there really wasn't, other than like Highlights magazine, there wasn't National Geographic, there wasn't anything really focused towards the younger folks. Then one day, I'm sitting at the airport, and honestly, I never actually read your magazine until a few months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is awesome. AviNation Magazine really speaks towards me as an older person and someone who works with younger people, but it also speaks towards some of those younger people. And one of the things that I loved is it's so visually appealing, but also the articles are incredible, and they're written by both people that are helping our youth. But really what's cool, they're actually written by the youth. So I'm just wondering why did you put this magazine together? Was it, because it helps me, that's for sure. It inspires me. So who else is your audience, in other words?
Well, there's two segments to it, but I'll kind of walk you back a little bit. When I was at my last tenure, and I was publisher of Aviator's Hotline, trade magazine, advertising magazine. And I had actually been friends with Mike Z, who well, over at the Lakeland Aero Club there at the Sun and Fun campus, and they're a high school flying club. And I had worked with him in his prior life. He was into the light sport. He is an importer of light sport aircraft, and so that's how I had gotten to know him. But when he came on to do what he now does, and doing a great job with those young people there. I started following what he was doing, and like I said, we had become good friends, so I was really interested in helping him promote what he was doing through our magazine. And so I did that. I started a small section called Youth Aviation. I mean, I wasn't quite sure what that all was at that point, to be honest with you, but I knew that that group was doing some amazing things with young people. And, so I started covering them, and what I did was I won Oshkosh. I had published a spread for them, and so I was up there, and they were in front of me, the whole group of young people from the Lakeland Aero Club that had flown all the way from Lakeland to Oshkosh, and I think that year they actually had 2 or 3 of them flying light sport aircraft within the actual air show. And I think the oldest one was 17 or 18 years old, and I mean it was crazy to see that. So I was following them around from afar, kind of not on purpose, but I saw them come up to a couple different vendors at their booths and show them this big magazine spread, and boom, right then the light bulb went off. I was like, wow, what can I do in getting, this problem that, we were starting to hear about getting, we're going to have pilot shortages and all this stuff. We need more young people in aviation. The light bulb went off. I was like, man, these kids are empowered by the power of print. That's what I can do. And so, we fast forward, we tried doing more with that, but it wasn't really our focus. And so I saw at that point, hey, there's something here. So, traveling around the world, but more importantly, the United States, I was doing a lot of different regional shows promoting our brand. And I would always see some kind of program, whether it was a Young Eagles back thing or, it was something completely different or a local high school. But I saw all these different groups that are doing all this stuff, but none of these people, when I would try to introduce them or say, hey, do you know so-and-so from, California, or they had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, whoa. Well, and this is what I refer to as herding the cats, because there's tons of this stuff going on all over the country. I mean, in every state there's something I found. But the problem was none of them have a network together. None of them rely on each other for information or to tell about their grievances or any of this. And so back to the original question, there's two segments to this. First of all, the empowerment, and that is young people supplying editorial, driving the content, seeing themselves on the cover with a selfie shot, whatever that may be. And that's truly the main design of the magazine, to really make it a magazine for the young aviators and those that want to be in the industry. For and by them is ideally where I'd like to go with that. But more importantly, I think in this stage right now, as we speak, year one of the magazine coming into year two, it's the other group. It's what I call the mentor group or the mentor network. And that's the people who didn't know each other. So the first issue, Mike Z was writing about, he's been writing in the magazine because he's went through a lot of these steps that these new clubs go through. So he was writing about different paperwork issues when they, restoring an old plane that was foreign and all these different things. And other people were writing about how to form the nonprofit, to do it for this purpose and a lot of things that people are tripping over the same obstacles. But that's why that mentor network is so important. And so that it's really two segments. It's the people like yourself that are really doing the job of getting youth into aviation, and it's for the youth that are coming in to empower them to show them, hey, I can do that too. That person on there, or that boy or that girl on that cover or on that article, they're no different than me. And so that's really the two segments of it. And it's funny because I have witnessed in my readership studies, and that's just traveling around, kind of observing from afar. I've seen an 8-year-old read this front to back in one sitting, and I've seen a 98-year young feller, read it front to back as well. And so I don't, people ask me, especially, when I'm talking to somebody about supporting it through advertising, well, who are you going to? What's your demographic? You've got to have a demographic. Well, it's really wide, and that's good because this is not a problem for one segment. It's all of us.
And I think it's wonderful that you are casting that wide net, because that's something we really do need to do in aviation. And who doesn't want to inspire other people by going after all those mentors, et cetera? But also, I think what you're doing is you're truly empowering the youth in our aviation. And I think that's terrific. As far as articles within the magazine, I think it's neat that you're having those folks actually write those articles. If there's somebody that's a youth, I mean, how do you even define youth? Like, for instance, would it possibly be somebody who was in one of the clubs and went on to college? I mean, who would be somebody that would contribute to your
Typically, there is no real age limit. We've got on our issue that's coming out as we speak. We've got Shasta Weyes, that the lady that flew around the world. She's, I think, 30 now. But she's on the cover. So youth is real. It's kind of but back our real sweet spot, I'd say, for the contributors is about, I would say 15, 16 to 24 is about where most of the content's coming from. And like I said, I was very, very humbled and happy that, I've had a lot of people reaching out to me to supply these articles because they find out or somebody tells them about it or shares one of the magazines or one of the digital magazines, and they're like, hey, I've got something to say, and we welcome. The thing with this platform is we welcome inclusion of everybody. I take articles in from anybody that wants to send it. As long, we got to sometimes do some editing, but honestly, the young contributors, like I said, the 15, 16, 14 through 24, I usually have little editing to do with those submissions, but that's kind of our sweet spot that has been up to this point. Now, our July issue, I had a contributor 14, 15, and 16. So, and the editorial was, you can tell that it's written by somebody younger than myself, which is key in order to have a youth audience, I believe. But there is no real, it's, if you got something that you want to tell and that can inspire others or tell people how to avoid what you had to go through, that's what we're looking for, really. So there isn't really an age, but typically it's about the 14 to 24, somewhere in there is where most of our editorial comes from.
So if you have a story that would be, appropriate to that or any other, really, but you really should tell your story. And I find that's very true, especially on Aviation Careers podcast, is we have people that have been for years listening saying, I'm not sure if this would help anybody, but I want to tell you my story. Tell you what, if it's a story that happened during your youth or later on in your life, in your flying life, in your career, it is great to share that. One thing I found is that there has never been a time that somebody shared a story that someone had said, I wish they didn't share that story. They all want to hear your story. And you have a story within you if you're listening, and I think you could contribute to the AviNation Magazine. If you have something inspirational to tell youth and to tell the mentors of youth, please submit it. And by the way, what's the best way to do that? I assume going to your website.
Yeah, you can go to the website. That's www.avinationusa.com or AviNation. It's about 50-50 on what it's called, AviNation or AviNation. And you can there is a form there, and there's my contact information, or you can just email it to me, which is jpped at gmail.com. But all that's on the website, and there's an easy way to submit there, and you can actually view all the digital magazines right off that website as well.
Well, I'm hoping that some of the kids that I coach and some of the students I coach will be listening right now and inspired to write into you a story about, what is a collegiate flight team. I think I'm not sure if you've had that in there before, you may have, but I really think that's a story that has to get out there. And it's actually an inspirational one, but it's also one that's great for promoting youth and in aviation and promoting their careers. Teaches them how to win and win with integrity. But,
that is one area I do want to cover better. And yeah, I do have quite a few contacts there because we do circulate the magazine to university programs. But that is something that I don't think that we represent well enough. So any of your listeners, please do supply that kind of stuff, because we're hitting many different groups within youth aviation, and I think they're all important, and they're all part of the process to get into the industry. So and another thing too, I don't have a lot of coverage on that. Is my goal for 2019 is to get more drone type and RC type stuff in there, because that also is a pretty important way to get into aviation as well. And we're underserved in a lot of those areas, but the more we get out there, I think the more that we'll be more diverse in what we're talking about.
For a little while, we started going down the path of careers in aviation and all, but involvement of youth in aviation really does benefit them. And for those that are listening at the Stuck Mike Avcast, they are ones that have this passion for aviation and bringing it into people's lives. And you don't have to go into aviation as a career. It has so many benefits to us as individuals, but more importantly, to your audience, the youth. So what does having a youth involved in aviation, how does that benefit that person?
Oh boy, that's it depends who you ask, but I think we all come with a few of the same things. just in my own, looking back in my life and the people that I knew or were around within aviation before I was fully, in aviation through the publishing, there was always a respect you had for some of these people. There was always, you learn that there's a lot of things in aviation that stick true to life. There's a whole lot of things, and I remember the people that I knew that were pilots, especially at the family business that was a corporate pilot. Just watching how they presented themselves, how they acted, and what they did, and when they're in the airplane, what they did. All that stuff affected me looking back now. But I think there's so much to just learn just by being around, not even the industry, just people that are aviators, and just looking at their personalities and their character types. There's definitely a theme, as you know. There's a theme of the kind of people, and honestly, aviation has, as an industry, has the caring and the fellowship is like any other industry I've been involved in.
And that fellowship goes on to other industries too. It's not just aviation; it can overlap into other things. For instance, there's a person that I know has the Flying Musicians Association, and he has done a great job of melding the two interests in aviation and also in music through this Flying Musicians Associations, I should say. They've done a great job, and you realize that you can have both hobbies and they both contribute to your life very, very well and actually make you a much more well-rounded person, but also can help you in your career and your life in general.
Well, absolutely. And Flying Musician, that's a great example. They're good friends of ours. We've helped support them, and they do wonderful stuff. In fact, every issue of AviNation has had something from the Flying Musicians in it, because they're giving out scholarships, and we want to promote that. And it's awesome to see, and especially like the work they're doing, because they're taking somebody who has, like you said, the two passions, and they're helping them through it. And we get to see, especially in the magazine, you get to see the progress that these people are doing going forward, and how it's changing and affecting their lives. And it's really neat. And there's quite a few organizations out there that paired, several passions together. But Flying Musicians is the one I know probably the best, because I like to help them promote their cause. But there's definitely a mix of passions when you talk aviation. I have not met anybody in aviation that isn't connected to some other passion just as much, and somehow they bring it all together. It's kind of crazy.
I think it's awesome that they bring it together, like Flying Musicians Association. One of the things you said about the scholarships, we obviously started that project years ago, the scholarships guide, and everybody thought I was crazy doing it, because how are you gonna do something like this, bring all these scholarships together? But your magazine and your experience finding that there's many different organizations throughout the country who've put together youth programs, but they haven't really talked to each other. There's not a real forum, which is what you're doing. You're bringing them together just through your magazine. I found the same thing with scholarships, and there's so many of those out there. And every time you read AviNation or AviNation Magazine, you will find something about a scholarship in there. As a matter of fact, Flying Musicians is one of the ones that we have in our scholarships guide over on Aviation Careers Podcast. It is an awesome thing that they're doing. And you know what? A lot of these organizations have scholarships that are writing in here. Even though sometimes they don't mention it, you have to dig deeper. And they're throughout the country. And the same problem that they had trying to administer their scholarships, the folks here that have written about it in the magazine, they'll give you that knowledge. They'll pass along some of those challenges they had, and you can usually talk directly to these people. I mean, it sounds interesting, with scholarships. I know, Jacob, you've probably talked to a few people, but it's not just as easy as saying, "Hey, I want to give away $1,000 to a scholarship and for someone to fly." There's a process. There really is a process, and I think Owen Zupp, who's the person at the Flying Musicians Association, is doing a great job at that.
Yeah, definitely.
But one of the things that I think they do, and I think all these folks do, is they bring the passion for aviation together into this one realm, like you've done in the magazine. But I've noticed too that you keep it going. You keep this passion running forward in not just the ads that are out there, but always telling people about events, etc. I've actually somewhat used your magazine now to figure out what events I might go to, because it seems like when it's in your magazine, it is the big event. I don't know how did you plan it that way?
Sometimes, but usually we're just supporting, providing the platform.
Awesome.
But and a lot of those shows, a lot of this stuff that you see in there, the people behind those events are super passionate about the youth part, and making sure that everybody's included and growing what we love as an industry. And the best way to do that obviously is through some kind of an event. And so we've been blessed to be working with those organizations that have that in mind, no doubt.
One of the cool things also about your magazine is that I've watched the people that are in your magazine grow. I mean, obviously with the Lakeland Aero Club, but all these other organizations that are out there, and it's neat to listen to their stories of the people that are actually in your magazine. And what I'll do is I'll go follow them on the internet and Instagram and see what they're doing now. And by doing that, I get inspired, and I think the readers would too. And I think that's another piece that comes out, is the fact that you actually get to be part of their lives. I think that's really cool.
That's absolutely right. I do the exact same thing as you're talking about. I'm friends with all these people on Facebook, Instagram, and all these other platforms they're using, and you're seeing them up their ratings and do different things, or whatever they're doing. But it's great, and we're getting maybe I called alumni of AviNation, but our very first cover in past January, Kaylee Bordner was on the cover in her story, and she has written for the magazine ever since, and talking about different things that she's went through. And so I know seeing that alone is it's so rewarding for me as a publisher, to see how these people are giving back to people in their age groups by using this tool, and they enjoy telling their story. And sometimes it's it's not the easiest path or the best story to tell, but it's what they it's what they're feeling, and it's very, very effective for helping other people. Me and you can sit here until we're blue in the face and say, hey, you should do this. This will get you to where you're telling me you want to be. But until somebody that's in their peer group really, really backs that up, we're kind of we're old men in this world now. so it's really effective that way, I think, to harness and create and harness that energy of motivation, if you will, even in that peer group at that age group.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I love hearing those stories. And as we were talking, I pulled up your last issue, and I just realized there is actually somebody that's a picture in there that's on our flight team, and has been on the flight team in the past. It's like that's what we need to do, is encourage those people to show, hey, here I was in high school, now I'm going to college, and I'm on to another job here shortly. But in general, I think that one of the things that you've done is you've promoted it amongst the peers, amongst the younger folks, etc. Love to see more articles about everything in aviation, something instructional, something inspirational. I think that's terrific. But as far as the positive outcomes from the person, the youth that's reading this, if I bring it home and give it to, my nephew, my friend's son, etc., what are directly, if you were to tell a parent, or if you tell somebody who's listening that's one of those youth in aviation, what would be some of the positive outcomes from just reading this magazine?
Well, a lot of it is being able to identify with somebody, and I think that's where aviation as an industry for so many decades was always seen as, it's the well-off or the people, or, aviation's had that, and not through really any fault of its own, but when you can connect somebody within the magazine, you don't force feed this kind of stuff. You offer it as something, as an option. Hey, here you go. And I've seen this happen at air shows right in front of me, where a grandpa or grandma or a mom or dad will go run and grab this after they've walked by the booth and say, I need to take this to my kid. And I'll see him down at the end of the row, and he's like, hey, you need to read this. And for young people, it's funny, because when I first started this, I was told that young people won't read magazines, and I laughed. I laughed out loud at the people who told me that, because I said, I have young people. I am a father of young people, and I said, every time I see a Lego magazine or any kind of Justice magazine or American Girl or any of that magazine gets read 2 or 3 times before it gets sat down. I said, so that's not right. I said, if you're talking about the politics in America on the front page of a newspaper, you're correct. Kids aren't going to engage in it. They don't need that junk. But if you have something that's right on, that it will work. And so far it has. And I think a lot of it is it's being able to look through here and say, hey, I can do that too. And I have had young people talk to me. And a lot of times they don't come and say, oh, hey, this changed my life. What they do is they send me a story. And that's when I can tell that it's engaged them in a positive manner. And like I said, I get stories just out of the blue, just because somebody handed them the magazine, and we ask, we want everybody to put their articles in. I am willing to go up in pages in the magazine to include articles. And so far we've been right at where we need to be on the pages and the articles we get, but it's really been an inspiration to me to keep going because of the engagement that I've gotten from the young people. And like I said, young people, young is just a word. But it's, the up and coming, the people that will be where we're at someday in 10, 15 years, whatever. But
one of the things I love about your magazine is the fact that it does speak so much to the youth, but I actually still think of myself as 20 something. When I look in the mirror, I realize that's just not true. And with that point, I like the fact that when I pick up your magazine, I see a smiling, happy, excited, youthful individual. Even if there is another person with them, it's that face of the youth of our nation and all nations that is actually out there on the magazine that really inspires me. I don't want to see some gray-haired old guy like myself on there unless there's another youthful person next to them, etc. But that's what it says. Hey, look, here, they've done it. You can too. And look at the smiling faces. Look at all these people in front of the airplane or even in the airplane flying. Yes, you don't think you can. You're wrong. You can do it because that person has. And that's what it exudes just through the covers alone. And I'm telling you, I can't help but pick up every episode or every issue of this magazine. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, through all my research and just through putting the magazine together, I can tell you, aviation is alive and well, and we will be for many decades just with our current set of young people. There was this whole doom and gloom, and I think that's getting better. It's real, but I don't think we got to worry. I think we have. I mean, it's the same thing about the World War II. The young people in World War II, flying all the missions. They were young. People forget that. Our young people have way more abilities than I think we as older people give them credit for. I think that's part of aging. But you look back at the World War II, and man, we probably got to give more responsibility over. And I think that happens in aviation. I think that's a natural thing in aviation. And you're right about the covers. That was part of our deal. We got to have young people aviating. It so happened that the selfie was the picture of choice with these people, and that's excellent. Unfortunately, our last cover of the year is not a selfie, but the selfie is really where our sweet spot is, and we like to save as long as these people are being safe while they're doing that kind of stuff. We promote that. We want to see people send us selfies. In fact, we're trying to gear up to do a whole section of just selfie pictures, and have some kind of a contest that would be voted on or something. Because you're right, that says it. That says it all. That's the message right there. Young people aviating, but just ear-to-ear grins while doing so.
And that's what we love to promote is people just giving us our pictures too. We have the hashtag #StuckMikeSelfie. Maybe you'll have that on your Instagram feed. Get out there and just and do a selfie and put it out there on Instagram. And do you have a hashtag they could put out there?
AviNation USA right now is what we've been using. I'm working on this in 2019. I'm really going to be ramping up our social presence, and I am actually going to be bringing on some, as we're calling youth, some youth staff to help with that. So right now, AviNation USA is what we've been using. Hashtag AviNation USA. So.
And we'll have links to that, by the way, in the show notes. Everything we're talking about here, their Instagram, Facebook page, the website, etc. And obviously, if you need to get in touch with Jacob, you can actually do that just through those links. One of the things that I think is great about your magazine too is it does it through pictures and articles, and it's not said through words, but through experiences, is the fact that there are not just youth, but there's also a lot of females getting into aviation. We have this talk often, and I had this talk, I think, at a round table at Sun and Fun, and I said, guys, there's a high school here, 51% of the people in the high school are actually females. We at our college have about 17%. We're looking at about 7% now as far as in the airline business and aviating. So we already are moving that, and I think we're moving very quickly in that direction of getting everybody, females, no matter who you are, what background you're from, into aviation, because you know what? The airplane doesn't know the difference between anybody when you're flying it. A pilot is a pilot. It doesn't know if you can land well. It doesn't know what your background is, your demographic, etc. You can just land that airplane well. So as from your experience, Jacob, in this magazine and from being out there, because you're really out there, what have you seen as far as the number of females getting into aviation?
Be honest with you, that's a lot of the stuff that's coming in is from females. I see that there was a lot of work done with, I don't know how long ago some of these organizations have been around, but getting females involved in aviation has been the mission of many people, and it shows. Like you're saying, man, the numbers are showing. You're seeing everything. You're seeing, like social media. If I do my daily social media stuff, and I'd say over 50%, if not more, has something to do with a female in those posts. I think we could take a lesson from that movement in particular, and just do what we're doing overall. And it doesn't matter what sex you are or what race or any of that stuff. And I think we can take a lot of lessons from women in aviation and different organizations like that. There's a lot of them out there. There's the Fly Girl. There's tons of that going on. And I was just thinking that the other day. I was like, wow, they're really good at doing those missions and publicizing that. And that actually gives me inspiration and gives me some ideas sometimes on how to further promote that. But in the magazine, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't even cross my mind when I'm putting this stuff in. But after I look at the final product, I'm going, wow, there's I want to make sure that there's a lot of representation. And I want to make sure there's representation of all of the different segments and all the different backgrounds. And especially like the underserved youth that are doing that. That's a huge point for me too. But I really think females in aviation is on the grow. I mean, just everything I'm consuming, that's the messaging I'm getting, and I'm super happy to support that any way I can.
Yeah, it's really is exponential growth. It's terrific. And I think one of the things, and you touched on it, that is so successful about like a women in aviation is that they are so inclusive of everybody. You can join as a male member. You can join as a female. Scholarships they have, they give away over 675,000 scholarships every year. And a lot of those are available to anybody who wants to promote their cause and also be a member. Are there scholarships that are specifically for females? Of course. Are there scholarships specifically for males? Yes. And for different age groups? Yes. And different demographics? Yes. But in general, there's stuff out there for everybody. So it is a wide tent, that's for sure. Jacob, I can't wait to see some of the new magazine articles and some of, just I guess it's a quarterly now, or is it semi-annual? You tell me what's coming up next.
Quarterly.
Okay, it's quarterly. So what can we expect? Can you tease a little bit what we can expect coming up here?
I'll be honest with you. I am at the discretion of my content providers, to be honest with you. There is a lot of stuff coming up. There's fly-ins now that are put on by young people, and there's just so much happening in this space that honestly it gets me a little overwhelmed trying to figure out what I can cover, not what I ought to be covering, what I can physically cover, and so that's good. I think I think some of the sleeping giants in the industry have been awakened through some, and I'm not saying through AviNation, because of AviNation, but I think there's been so much effort on, and way before me, this effort was going on and it was live and well. But I think now the industry as a whole has really grabbed onto this. So I can't tell you what that means for the magazine, except I do know that I'm going to go up in pages next year. There'll be an increase in pages because to this point we have as much content as we can use. It's right, like I said, it's right at the point. So I do see a bigger magazine coming out. I do see more of a social presence and network that will be developed and formed within the next year. I think that's a part we really have to develop, but I'm very humble about that and saying that I need people that are in that age space, age range to really help with that, because you can tell in the magazine, who it's written by, what age group, and so we've got to make it, for the youth, but by the youth on that side of it. So I next up for AviNation is really getting serious and partnering with different people within the digital space and the social spaces. But we're wide open. Like I said, we haven't specifically attached to any organization or any of that. Not that we haven't had those opportunities, but we want to make sure this is an all-inclusive platform. That's where the power is in this messaging. And that's why we've just kept the course we've been on. But really, we want to report on everything. And honestly, my goal is to grow the distribution next year. I would like to go up. I'm cautious to just start sending the magazine to places I don't know. So to your listeners, we have subscriptions, but if you've got some kind of a group that you work with or you're involved with, look us up. Let us know, because I would love to send distribution out to different organizations throughout the country. And as of right now, we do that. We do that until we hit our budget numbers, but typically we haven't had that issue yet. But we definitely want to be around where the action's happening, and we are getting a lot of content from local EAA chapters because they're doing their Young Eagles events, and they want to have these magazines to give out. And so we want more of that to continue, because that's where we're getting a lot of our content from. So really, as much as I do on what's next. We're going to keep doing what we know how to do, and that's produce a quality magazine and get it in the hands of people that will use it. But like I said, it's really a blank canvas here. It's really about the youth and the pictures that they want to paint, and so we're just kind of being guided by that.
And AviNation is really, it's doing its job, and it's continuing on. I think I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see the next issues. You truly are attracting youth to aviation. You're educating them through this magazine. And one of the things I think is really, really important, and you said it, is you truly are empowering youth in aviation. And that's what we want to see, is we want everybody to be empowered, whether you're going to do this as a hobby or you're going to go on and do this as a career. AviNation is a magazine that you should be reading if you're somebody that's actually a youth right now or somebody who wants to help somebody and mentor somebody. I think you should subscribe. It's really easy. Go to their website, AviNation, and you can, like you said, if you want a bulk subscription, you can do that for, say, one of your aviation clubs. You want to help out somebody, you want to help out a college, you can go ahead, or any type of a club, you can go there and do a bulk subscription and make sure it gets in the hands of the people who can help the most. And I think that's terrific. Well, gosh, Jacob, what's next? What's next for you? This is an incredible project.
Well, like I said, I'm just still trying to identify and create a mentor network, as well as figure out how to. The distribution is really what's next for me. I wear all hats here, but of course, I'm always working on getting support for the next issues. But that really working on the distribution and really creating and connecting the mentor network, I think is vital. When I first started this, I went to several people that were seen as people in this space that were kind of frontiers people, and I could not find a directory or list, like your scholarship directory, that could connect me to all the major players. It doesn't exist. There may be people who have Rolodexes full of contacts, but there really isn't a network that exists that I have come across that's totally inclusive. So that's really my mission this next year, is to just identify groups that are doing good, that are doers. As I call it, a lot of my social sharing, I say, hey, here's another doer, because a lot of people talk. And we all like to talk about aviation and how we're going to do well and change and get our neighbor up in the flying in the Cub or whatever we do. But we really just need to keep identifying all these different groups, and that's really where my path is this next year, is just to try to continue to connect the dots.
Well, I think that's going to happen, and I think it's great that AviNation, actually, a lot of you is shown through this magazine and what you're doing, and especially empowering our youth in aviation. And hats off to you. I really commend you for what you're doing. And not just you. I know it's a big team out there. All the people that are involved that I've been able to meet and speak with at your organization, I think they all do a terrific job. And those people that contribute to the magazine, if it's one article or many, it's those people that are actually making this move forward, and I think that's terrific.
They are.
Jacob, this has been awesome having you on. I mean, we could talk for hours about youth and aviation and, just on all the different topics. How do we get more people very young and in their mid-years and, say, in their college years into aviation? But you know what? The best thing to do is go ahead and just read the magazine. That's what I think.
I agree.
Well, Jacob, I hopefully you'll come back on again, and we'll see you again. And that's one thing we didn't mention. Where we're going to see you next? I mean, what events will you be at throughout the year in case I want to visit with you?
Probably the next one that I'll see you at would be Sun and Fun.
Okay, good. And you're at, I know you were at Triple Tree at one point. You're at AirVenture, et cetera.
Yep. I do. There's 2 events I did at Triple Tree. The Young Aviators Flying, which will happen again next June, I believe. That's a great one to be at. That was their inaugural event. And then I did the Fall GA Flying for a few of the days. And of course we do Oshkosh. We try to get down to Florida several times a year. We're probably going to do the new Copper State this year in February out in Arizona. There's a lot of youth aviation programs going on out in that area. But Sun and Fun will be the next real major show that we'll be at, and I think we'll probably have a pretty wide presence there.
Well, we'll be definitely interviewing you there, and I can't wait to see you again. And we'll have to hang out on the deck of Sun and Fun Radio and enjoy the air show. So I can't wait to see you there. Jacob, thanks again for being on. I really appreciate you being here. And for any of the listeners right now that want to find out more about AviNation Magazine, it's real simple. Just go out there, aviationusa.com. Or just go to the show notes here in episode 189. If you do have questions and you want to contact us or maybe make a comment, do that on the webpage there. Do it right there on our Facebook page, on our website, and also on our other social media. And don't let me forget our YouTube channel. I know we put out a question. We've been doing that now every episode, asking some aviation-related question on YouTube, promoting our next episode. If you want to find the answer to that question, they're out there on YouTube. So we ask the question, wait till the episode comes out, and then we answer it in a YouTube video. Those questions vary from things that are very technical. The last thing we did was descend via clearance at Angels Fort with the De Niro transition to ILS 25 left at Los Angeles. That was one that was very technical, and then we go all the way to history, like Plant City Airport and why it's called Plant City. If you want to know the answers to those questions, check it out on our new, our YouTube channel's been around for a while, but we're finally putting some more videos out there. Well, folks, we really appreciate listening, and do something today to actually help somebody with youth in aviation move forward with their lives, empower youth, and the best way to do that, AviNationUSA.com, and go ahead and subscribe. Get one of those magazines into the hands of our youth. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying.
You've been listening to the Stuck Mic Avcast. Members of the Stuck Mic Avcast may receive compensation for products or services mentioned during the podcast. Compensation may be received in the form of, but not limited to, referral commissions, free products, or service trials. Our opinions and views are never influenced by any compensation, and you should always perform your own due diligence before purchasing any products or services mentioned during the show. The Stuck Mike Avcast is an aviation podcast and a Valeri Aviation Corporation production.